So in this video, I'm going to show you different ways I think full-time RV living can actually offset wage slavery.
Men should refuse to be lifelessly at work. Men should refuse to be heaps of wage earning dung. Men should refuse to work at all as wage slaves. Men should demand to work for themselves, and put their life into it. For if a man has no life in his work, he is mostly a heap of dung.
So when I was younger, my grandfather actually gave me this quote by D.H. Lawrence. It was all about wage slavery. And I thought about it ever since. And more recently, this guy Tom on YouTube talking about wage slavery. And funny, his most recent posting on YouTube about wage slavery.
Just give up, okay? The system is rigged, and you will never escape wage slavery. If it were easy, everyone would have left already, right? So, since they haven't, let's be honest. You're not Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, although let's be real, even Elon seems to be struggling these days.
I want to asterisk this to say, if you're comfortable and you love your life and you're not feeling like a wage slave at all, then this isn't for you, obviously, right? But if you're feeling under the thumb, then this is definitely a way to liberate yourself. Now, first of all, wage slavery, kind of like, what is it really? There's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but here's something expounded upon in terms of The Tyranny of the Marketplace by Bob Wells.
The tyranny of the marketplace dictates your whole life. You will get a job, you will work 9 to 5, you will make enough, or what happens if you don't? If you can't pay your rent, a man with a gun comes around and says, pay your rent or live on the streets. That's where being a nomad comes in. You can break the tyranny of the marketplace to the greatest degree possible.
Now, Bob Wells even suggests that full-time RV living can help, liberate yourself. But how can that actually be done? Like, how can it actually do that? And one of the ways, of course, is to offset basically the high rents, which are weaponized against us to keep us barely under subsistence living, right? Now, in a previous video, I show how that actually can be done. It makes a comparison with numbers and everything. Now, definitely, it's great escaping high rent. Full-time RV living actually has liberated me from the usual constructs. And what I mean by the usual construct is what you've been taught. There's this movement of unschooling. And I think we've all been kind of schooled into ways of thinking, from childhood and onwards. The culture, parenting, schools definitely took over, how we think, what we think about, and how we're expected to live. RV living is kind of like unschooling for adults because it pulls you out of all those usual ways of living. And in that sense, you're free to basically live the way you want, to be more intentional about what you're doing with your life. And one of the questions that comes up is, well, what do I do with my life? Because there's this sense, at least for me anyway, and one of the more recent epiphanies I had, there's this sense of like, I need to prove my existence. I need to have actually done things, even hiking, which I enjoy immensely. It's like, I have to prove, I was worthy that day on a hike. And the more miles I do, well, the more worthy I am. The steeper the climb, the higher the altitude is more worthy the hike is, right? But you're worthy in just hanging out next to a river. You're worthy getting outside. You're worthy just existing and being. It's this idea of be, do, have is the cornerstone of, I think, intentional living. It's being the way you intend to be. It's being who you are at your core. And from that space, doing. It's an alignment of mind-heart coherence. And in that alignment of your total being, suddenly, it becomes much easier to basically live intentionally and live fully, a full life when there is no doubt. There is no hijacking, having to prove things. Okay, so that's part of unschooling. I think if you can get outside of the normal routines, if you can basically break pattern from usual life, then you can get to the point of unschooling yourself, kind of looking at different truths, going down different rabbit holes. And what I found anyway is part of that process is creating, like I'm doing now, like creating a video, right? And I would like to suggest to you that in that process of creating, it's not necessarily this thing that has to be done for making it on YouTube or to make money necessarily, although I do think that can help a lot. It's actually a delving into your own realizations, your own wisdom, and teaching it again. It's that book inside of you that you give to somebody else in creative form, however it might be. Check out this from Gabe.
Yes, this might not like literally change somebody's life. It's not like I'm like say, building houses or being a doctor or something, but because somebody wrote a book and created something, it let me leave my job 24 because somebody wrote a book. And my dream that I constantly shoot for is to be that book for somebody. Videos, I hope, are the thing that starts somebody down a trajectory that they end up writing a book, 3 years from now, or they end up leaving their job and doing something they love. They end up getting financial freedom and getting their wife or their husband out of work. They end up just simplifying their life a little bit, having some better money habits, doing something, creating something.
That book inside of you, that thing that you do. Here's another creative talking about the process of basically it adding to your life rather than being something else you have to do.
Most creators think that they need to create their content entirely from scratch, but if you're already learning every day to level up your core skills and craft, when you adopt this first strategy, your learning process is able to naturally generate valuable content. And just as importantly, the act of breaking down what you learn for others forces you to understand it at a much deeper level. As opposed to being a distraction, content creation is able to begin complementing and accelerating your growth in your core work.
When you get into the lifestyle, RV living, it allows you to have a little bit more freedom, and it flips things on its head. And you start to realize a lot of society, in fact, not surprisingly, is a bit insane. Why try to be sane in an insane society, right? Everything is upside down. Everything is flipped. Our food is poison. Our air is poison. There's water, all kinds of things. But the thing of it is, when you go into the lifestyle, you meet other people who are living a different way. And from that space, you can unschool your children. You can homeschool your children. Homesteads are great for that. But RV living introduces you to this. It's an easy way to kind of like lend into different ways of living. And you meet other people who are doing the same thing. And I think that's where it gets to. It's community of like-minded people that bridge to living differently. When you go into the lifestyle, it's good to recognize where it's better to try for that community, to embrace that community and set up situations where you can go back to different places so that you can reconnect with people and have a sense of community, even if it's, in different places. So I mention all this because I think it is a form of liberation to be outside of culture. And it doesn't have to be forever. You can take that mini sabbatical. My mother, when I was in college, started to go on what she called mini retirements. And this is before it became popular now, right? Obviously. And she would work, during the summer, and then she would go off to Mexico for half the year in her Toyota camper. And for her, those were her mini retirements, which is great because she died at 63, which is pretty darn young. And she didn't get regular retirement, so none of us are guaranteed regular retirement, right? Why wait for that? So the crux of this is that escaping wage slavery is a lot more possible when you can get out from under the thumb of the tyranny of the marketplace, which creates a wage slave situation. And first, you can get out of high rent. But onwards from that, you might, lend towards having, creating digital offers. You might go and do work camping, which is going to different campgrounds and you work for the season, make enough to keep on going. It's a lifestyle that's a little more like on the edge, so to speak. You're not going to necessarily get all the comforts that you would, but do you really want to be comfortable as a slave? So I highly recommend that at least a month, 3 months, getting yourself into a situation where you can live differently, where you can go to different countries, where you can just experience something completely different so that you can see your life from a different angle, when you can see culture from a different angle. It really allows you to make life choices a little more intentionally. Then it also can lend yourself to maybe unschooling yourself from what we've been indoctrinated with. Because if you go down some of these rabbit holes, you'll realize we've been heavily indoctrinated and in the process controlled along the way. We are much greater than we've been told. But that's all for another episode. I hope this finds you well and it's helpful. If it does, be sure to subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.